Your neighbors are walking out of Walmart every week with bags full of things they will never mention to you. And that silence is completely intentional. Something quiet is happening in homes across this country. School teachers, nurses, truck drivers, retired couples, ordinary people are building multi-year supplies one shopping trip at a time. No social media posts, no conversation at the backyard cookout, no mention at the school drop-off. Just calm, steady action while everyone else buys the usual stuff and heads home. FEMA's own survey data shows that roughly 60% of American households cannot sustain themselves for even 3 days if grocery stores became inaccessible. 3 days. Meanwhile, coffee prices have climbed 46%, beef is up 30%. Supply chain analysts are flagging tighter windows with each passing quarter. The people paying attention to those numbers are not panicking. They are not doom scrolling. They are making a list, walking into Walmart, and keeping their mouths shut. Today, that silence ends. Every item on this list gets revealed. What it is, exactly where to find it inside a Walmart store, and precisely why people who understand preparedness keep buying it without saying a word to anyone around them. Stay all the way to item number 1, because item number 1 is what every single experienced preparedness-minded person buys before anything else on this list. It costs under $2, it is sitting on a Walmart shelf right now, and almost nobody knows they need it. Let's get into it. Item 15. Potassium iodide tablets. This one will make some people uncomfortable. Good. That discomfort is worth sitting with for 60 seconds while the logic gets explained, because it is rock-solid logic backed by official government science. Your thyroid gland is the only organ in your body that actively pulls iodine out of your bloodstream and concentrates it. In a radiological emergency, a nuclear power plant incident, a dirty bomb scenario, any event releasing radioactive iodine into the environment, that biological function becomes a liability. Your thyroid will absorb whatever iodine is circulating in your blood, radioactive or not. Potassium iodide tablets flood the thyroid with stable, non-radioactive iodine first, saturating it completely. A saturated thyroid cannot absorb more. The radioactive version passes through without taking root. This is not fringe theory. This is the documented protocol of the Centers for Disease Control and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The NRC specifically recommends that households within 10 miles of commercial nuclear plants keep potassium iodide on hand. There are currently 93 operating commercial nuclear reactors in the United States. Here is the part that wakes people up. When Russia escalated military operations in Ukraine in 2022, Ukraine being home to the largest nuclear power plant on the European continent, potassium iodide sales inside the United States spiked 2,000% in a single week. Shelves were empty within 48 hours. The people who had already purchased it were calm. Everyone else was scrambling for a product that had simply vanished. Walmart carries potassium iodide tablets in the pharmacy section. Most shoppers walk through the pharmacy section and never examine what is actually stocked on those shelves. Experienced preparedness buyers do not make that mistake. A family supply runs approximately $12 to $15. Per dollar of protection purchased, this may be the most important item on this entire list. Item 14. Pool shock, specifically calcium hypochlorite. Most people know that liquid bleach can purify water in an emergency. That knowledge is accurate, but incomplete in a way that creates a dangerous false sense of security. Standard liquid bleach, the kind sitting in the laundry aisle, has an active chlorine content that degrades to ineffective levels within 6 to 12 months of manufacture. After that point, it will not reliably kill pathogens in water, regardless of how much you pour in. Pool shock is a fundamentally different product. Calcium hypochlorite granules, available in Walmart's outdoor and pool supply section, contain 68 to 78% available chlorine in stable granular form. A single 1-pound bag, stored properly in an airtight container, retains full potency for up to 10 years. Now here is the math that converted every experienced prepper who heard it for the first time. 1 pound of pool shock costs approximately $5 at Walmart.
That 1-pound bag can purify up to 10,000 gallons of drinking water. 10,000 gallons. $5. A decade of shelf stability. The method is straightforward. 1 teaspoon dissolved in 2 gallons of water creates a concentrated chlorine stock solution.
1 part of that solution, added to 100 parts of raw water, produces drinking water that meets EPA safety standards. This is the water purification approach that knowledgeable preparedness people quietly rely on. It is available right now in the outdoor section at Walmart, and 99% of shoppers have never connected it to emergency water preparedness. Item 13. Mylar bags. If long-term food storage is part of your preparedness plan and you are not using Mylar bags, the results you are getting are significantly worse than they need to be. This is not opinion. The science is clear and has been for decades. Standard plastic containers, including food-grade buckets, are oxygen permeable at the molecular level. Oxygen molecules are small enough to migrate slowly through plastic walls, even when the lid is firmly sealed. That slow infiltration means food inside plastic containers is oxidizing continuously over months and years. Oxidation destroys nutritional density, creates rancidity in fats, and degrades flavor compounds progressively. Mylar is a specific laminated polyester film with an aluminum barrier layer built into its structure. That aluminum layer creates complete oxygen impermeability, zero penetration. Paired with an oxygen absorber placed inside before sealing, a Mylar bag creates a genuinely inert internal environment where oxidation simply cannot occur. The practical difference in storage life is not marginal, it is transformational. White rice stored in a plastic bucket lasts approximately 5 years before meaningful nutritional degradation occurs. The identical rice sealed inside a Mylar bag with an oxygen absorber lasts 25 to 30 years with near complete nutritional preservation. Same rice, completely different outcome determined entirely by the container. Walmart stocks Mylar bags in varying sizes near the canning supplies and kitchen storage sections. Experienced buyers pick them up consistently and say nothing about it to anyone. Item 12. Oxygen absorbers. These small packets belong on this list independently because even people who understand Mylar bags frequently underestimate what oxygen absorbers actually contribute to the equation. Understanding the mechanism changes how seriously you take them. An oxygen absorber is a sealed packet containing iron powder and salt. When enclosed in a sealed environment, those components react with ambient oxygen molecules and permanently bind to them, removing oxygen from the airspace inside the container. A correctly rated absorber placed inside a Mylar bag will reduce interior oxygen levels from the normal atmospheric concentration of 21% down to below 0.1% within 24 hours of sealing. At effectively zero oxygen, 3 things happen simultaneously. Aerobic bacteria and mold require oxygen to survive. They cannot function in an oxygen-free environment, making biological contamination impossible. Insect eggs and larvae that may be present in grain products at microscopic levels also cannot survive without oxygen, eliminating pest contamination entirely without any chemical treatment. And oxidation of fats, vitamins, and flavor compounds ceases completely, preserving nutritional integrity and taste indefinitely. Research from Utah State University's food storage program tested identical white rice samples stored with and without oxygen absorbers over a 10-year period. The samples with oxygen absorbers retained 95% of original nutritional content. Samples stored without them retained 60%. Same rice, same Mylar, one variable, the oxygen absorber. Walmart stocks these in the canning section alongside mason jars and preservation supplies. Item 11. Hard red winter wheat berries. Whole wheat berries are one of the most nutritionally complete and storage-stable foods that exist, and almost no one who is not already deep into preparedness thinking has ever put them in a shopping cart. This gap represents one of the widest divides between people who understand food security and people who do not. Here is why wheat berries matter at a level that processed flour cannot match.
When wheat is milled into flour, the outer bran layer and inner germ are removed or disrupted. The natural oils in the germ begin oxidizing immediately after milling. Whole wheat flour has a shelf life of roughly 6 to 12 months before rancidity and nutritional degradation become significant. Whole wheat berries are the intact seed. The bran and germ remain fully protected inside the outer hull. No oxidation pathway is exposed. Wheat berries sealed in Mylar with oxygen absorbers have documented storage lives of 25 to 30 years with essentially complete nutritional retention. The same grain that archaeologists have recovered from ancient storage sites and successfully sprouted.
That is biological stability at a scale that no processed food product can approach. A grain mill, available for $20 to $40, allows you to grind wheat berries into fresh flour on demand. Every loaf of bread you bake from that freshly milled flour delivers dramatically higher nutritional content than anything baked from commercial shelf flour. Walmart carries wheat berries in the bulk food or grain section. The price per pound makes them one of the most economical calorie sources available anywhere. Item 10. Pinto beans in bulk. Beans and grains stored together represent the most nutritionally complete long-term food pairing in human history, and that combination has fed civilizations for thousands of years for a specific biological reason most people have never heard explained. Grains are rich in certain amino acids, but deficient in others, particularly lysine. Beans are rich in lysine, but deficient in the amino acids grains contain abundantly. Eaten together, they provide a complete amino acid profile, functionally equivalent to animal protein. Your body cannot manufacture essential amino acids on its own. It must get them from food. In a scenario where access to meat becomes unreliable or expensive, a grain and bean combination is not a compromise. It is a complete protein source that has sustained human populations without any animal protein supplement across every inhabited continent throughout recorded history. Dried pinto beans sealed in Mylar with oxygen absorbers, as covered earlier in this list, achieves a storage life of 25 to 30 years. The same rice in a plastic bucket achieves 5. The container choice determines the outcome. Experienced buyers understand this and make the right choice every time they stock up. Item 8. Himalayan pink salt or sea salt in bulk. Salt has been discussed in terms of its fundamental role later in this list, but the iodized versus non-iodized distinction deserves its own moment here because it changes the health calculus significantly. Iodized salt contains potassium iodide, added during processing to prevent iodine deficiency. Iodine deficiency is the leading preventable cause of cognitive impairment globally and was nearly eradicated in developed nations specifically because of iodized salt programs. In a scenario where dietary variety narrows significantly, iodine intake can drop rapidly without a reliable source built into staple foods. Himalayan pink salt and many sea salt varieties do not contain added iodine. If you are stocking these for flavor and mineral complexity, which is a valid reason, you need a separate iodine source in your preparedness plan. Potassium iodide tablets from item 15 on this list serve dual purposes in that context. A 50-pound bag of pure iodized salt at Walmart, often stocked in the water softener section where it is significantly cheaper per pound than cooking canisters in the food aisle, costs approximately $8 to $12. That quantity lasts the average family multiple years of normal consumption. The cost per year of coverage is lower than almost any other item on this list. Item 7. Canned sardines or mackerel. Omega-3 fatty acids are classified as essential nutrients. Your body cannot synthesize them internally. They must come from diet. In a long-term food storage scenario built primarily around grains and legumes, which is where most preparedness plans naturally default, omega-3 intake drops to essentially zero unless a specific source is built into the supply. The cognitive and cardiovascular consequences of extended omega-3 deficiency are well documented and begin manifesting within weeks. Canned sardines and mackerel are among the highest omega-3 food sources available per dollar anywhere in the world. They are also among the most shelf-stable animal protein sources commercially available, with manufacturer-guaranteed shelf lives of 3 to 5 years and documented safe consumption well beyond those dates when stored in cool, dark conditions. A single can provides significant protein, healthy fats, vitamins D and B12, and calcium from the soft bones, a nutritional profile that is extraordinarily difficult to replicate from plant sources alone. Walmart stocks both sardines and mackerel in the canned fish aisle at roughly $1 to $2 per can. Experienced preparedness buyers pick up multiple cans every visit. They never mention it at the checkout. They just quietly close a significant nutritional gap that most preparedness plans leave completely open. Item 6. Honey in bulk. Archaeologists have recovered honey from Egyptian tombs dating back 3,300 years. It was still chemically edible. That is not a figure of speech or an exaggeration. Honey's chemical composition, its low moisture content, high sugar concentration, and natural hydrogen peroxide content, creates an environment where microbial growth is biologically impossible under normal storage conditions. No other natural food product available at a grocery store shares that storage characteristic. Properly sealed honey does not expire. It may crystallize over time. That crystallization is a normal phase change, not spoilage, and it reverses completely with gentle warming. The honey itself is unchanged. Beyond indefinite shelf life, honey is one of the few natural substances with documented wound-healing properties. Medical-grade Manuka honey is used in clinical settings for wound management, specifically because of its antimicrobial activity. Standard raw honey carries the same biological properties in reduced degree. In an extended scenario where pharmaceutical supplies are limited, a natural topical antimicrobial with indefinite shelf stability is a meaningful addition to any preparedness supply. Walmart stocks large, bulk containers of honey at significantly lower per-ounce costs than smaller containers. Experienced buyers pick up the largest format available every time. Item 5. Pasta in bulk. Pasta belongs on this list for reasons that extend beyond its obvious caloric utility. The psychological dimension of food in extended stress scenarios is frequently underestimated in preparedness planning. Research on disaster response populations consistently shows that familiar, comforting foods have a measurable effect on mental health, cooperation, and decision-making quality during prolonged stressful periods. Pasta is one of the most universally familiar comfort foods across American households. Its presence in a preparedness supply provides psychological stability alongside caloric value. From a purely practical standpoint, dried pasta stored in sealed, airtight conditions maintains quality and nutritional content for 3 to 5 years under standard conditions, and it requires only water and heat to prepare. It pairs with virtually any preserved protein or vegetable source in the supply. And at Walmart's great value prices, the cost per calorie is among the lowest of any shelf-stable food available. A preparedness supply without familiar foods creates compliance problems. People, especially children, will resist eating unfamiliar foods under stress, reducing actual caloric intake at exactly the moment adequate nutrition matters most. Pasta solves that problem. Buy it in bulk. Store it sealed. Item 4. Peanut butter powder. Standard peanut butter in a jar is a legitimate preparedness staple. But peanut butter powder, which most people have either never noticed or never understood, is strictly superior for long-term storage in every meaningful dimension. The fat content in standard peanut butter, which constitutes approximately 50% of its volume, begins oxidizing once the jar is opened and continues even in sealed jars over extended periods. That fat oxidation is what creates the off flavor in old peanut butter.
More importantly, it reduces caloric availability and introduces potentially harmful oxidation byproducts. Peanut butter powder has the fat partially removed during processing, dramatically extending its shelf stability. An unopened container of peanut butter powder maintains quality for 4 to 5 years under standard conditions.
Sealed in Mylar with an oxygen absorber, the shelf life extends well beyond a decade. It reconstitutes with water in seconds into a product that is nutritionally nearly identical to standard peanut butter. It also functions as a protein-rich flavor additive to oatmeal, rice preparations, and pasta dishes, an important consideration when monotony in a limited food supply begins affecting appetite and morale. Walmart stocks peanut butter powder in the peanut butter aisle. Look on the higher or lower shelves where slower-moving products get placed. It is there. Most people walk past it without a second look. Experienced buyers do not. Item 3. Activated charcoal. Activated charcoal is a medical first response tool that most people have genuinely never considered as a preparedness supply item. That gap in awareness is significant because the use case it addresses, accidental poisoning or toxic ingestion, is both relatively common in emergency scenarios and extremely time-sensitive. Activated charcoal is produced by heating carbon-rich material to extremely high temperatures in a controlled environment. That process creates a porous surface structure with a surface area that is almost incomprehensibly large relative to the charcoal's physical size. 1 gram of activated charcoal has a documented surface area of approximately 1,000 square meters. That surface area is the mechanism. Toxins, chemicals, and biological compounds bind to activated charcoal's surface through a process called adsorption. When ingested promptly after toxic substance consumption, activated charcoal can bind a significant portion of that substance in the gastrointestinal tract before absorption into the bloodstream occurs, dramatically reducing toxic exposure. Emergency rooms use activated charcoal routinely for a specific category of poisoning scenarios. The critical limitation must be stated clearly. Activated charcoal is not effective against all toxic substances. It does not bind effectively to alcohols, metals, or corrosive materials. It is a first response measure that buys time while professional medical care is accessed, not a replacement for emergency services. In extended scenarios where access to emergency medical care is delayed, having legitimate, clinically recognized first response tools matters enormously. Activated charcoal costs approximately $10 at Walmart's pharmacy section and takes up almost no storage space. Item 2. Hand crank flashlights. The standard approach most households take to emergency lighting, stockpile extra batteries, buy a few flashlights, is fundamentally flawed in a way that experienced preparedness thinkers figured out years ago and quietly corrected. Battery-powered flashlights have 2 independent failure points in any extended emergency situation. The batteries deplete and the bulb burns out. Batteries stored at room temperature lose approximately 20% of their charge annually, even when not in use. A pack of batteries sitting in your drawer right now is already partially depleted from the moment you purchased it. In any genuine extended disruption, a week-long power outage, a major weather event, any infrastructure failure lasting more than a few days, battery supply becomes a serious constraint very quickly. Hand crank flashlights eliminate both failure points simultaneously. No batteries required, no external power source required. A standard hand crank LED model available at Walmart for approximately $15 to $25 generates electricity through a small internal generator driven by manual cranking. 1 minute of cranking typically produces 30 to 60 minutes of LED light output, depending on the specific model. Modern LED bulbs in these units are rated for 50,000 to 100,000 hours of operation, effectively permanent for any practical purpose. The internal rechargeable cell that stores the hand crank charge typically sustains 500 to 1,000 full charge cycles before any noticeable capacity reduction occurs. Experienced preparedness buyers place one in every room and keep one in every vehicle. At $15 to $25 per unit,
Few purchases on this list deliver more reliable long-term value. Item 1. Great value distilled water, purchased in bulk every single visit. Every preparedness professional, every emergency management instructor, and every person with genuine experience navigating extended supply disruptions agrees on this without any qualification whatsoever. Water is the irreducible first priority. Nothing else comes close. Nothing else even belongs in the same conversation until water is covered. Here is the biological reality that makes this true at a level beyond debate. The human body can survive approximately 3 weeks without food under typical conditions.
The human body begins experiencing serious cognitive and physical impairment from dehydration within 24 hours of water deprivation and enters a life-threatening crisis within 72 hours. You will become cognitively impaired from thirst before you feel the first meaningful hunger from food scarcity. Every other item on this list, the rice, the beans, the pasta, the oats, requires water to be functional food. The pool shock at item 14 that purifies 10,000 gallons is only useful if you have access to a water source to treat. Your entire food storage becomes a collection of dry ingredients if you have no water to cook with. Water is not the first priority because of convention or tradition. It is the first priority because human biology makes it non-negotiable. FEMA's official guidance calls for 1 gallon per person per day as the minimum threshold covering drinking and basic sanitation. For a family of 4, that means 28 gallons for 1 week and 56 gallons for 2 weeks. Great value distilled water at Walmart runs approximately $1 to $1.25 per gallon. Distilled water, unlike spring water or filtered tap water, contains 0 dissolved minerals or contaminants. When stored in its original sealed container, away from direct sunlight and chemical vapors, it has an indefinite shelf life, no degradation, no expiration. The people who have built genuine preparedness supplies, the quiet ones in your neighborhood who say nothing about what is in their Walmart bags, they add water to their cart every single visit. Not occasionally, not when they remember, every visit, because they understand that everything else on this list is built on a foundation of adequate water storage. Take that foundation away, and the entire structure collapses. Now here is a practical note to save you time on your next Walmart trip. Several items on this list are not located where most people would naturally look for them. Potassium iodide tablets and activated charcoal are in the pharmacy section, not the supplement aisle. Pool shock and Mylar bags are in the outdoor and garden center. These are seasonal items, so purchasing them now rather than waiting is the right move. Oxygen absorbers are in the canning supply section near mason jars and food preservation equipment. Peanut butter powder is in the peanut butter aisle, but stocked on the higher or lower shelves where slower-moving products are placed. Look carefully and you will find it. Hand crank flashlights are in the automotive and hardware section, not the camping section in most Walmart locations. Bulk salt in the large format bags is in the water softener section. Pure sodium chloride, it's significantly lower cost per pound than the cooking salt canisters in the food aisle. And distilled water is exactly where you expect it. Put it in your cart before you start shopping. Every time. These 15 items are not about catastrophizing. They're not about fear. They're not about a specific disaster scenario or a particular political moment. They're about making one calm, rational decision. The decision that a significant number of your neighbors have quietly already made that places your family in the category of households that can sustain themselves, rather than the 60% that cannot make it 3 days. That is a choice that costs less than most people think and takes less time than most people realize. And the people who have made it are not worried. They're not watching the news with anxiety. They're going about their lives with a quiet confidence that comes from knowing they are prepared. That is the real reason they are not telling you what is in those bags. They're not keeping a secret. They're just not afraid anymore. If this list changed how you see your pantry, do one thing right now. Hit that like button and subscribe to my channel so you never miss what comes next. The next video covers the 10 biggest food storage mistakes that even experienced preparedness buyers make, and the number 1 mistake is something almost nobody talks about openly. Drop the word READY in the comments if you are heading to Walmart this week.
Let's see how many of us are making the same quiet moves.